welcome back to another episode of 0 to 60. Now, this one's been a long time coming. I'm actually in the BMW 135 that I fitted a Turbolamic and an 8HP 45 to coming up to a year ago. In fact, I think it was April we finished it. Unfortunately, everything's just been crazy since April last year. It's been an absolute mess. I will let everybody know what's happened once it's all finalized, but I've finally got a chance to get this car back. I want to update the software on the Turbolamic, which is what this video is going to be about. I'm going to show you guys how to do it. And I also, in probably a separate video, I'll do a review on the 8HP 45 and try and show you guys why I haven't been recommending them for the cars that are over that 500 horsepower or the guys that are abusing the transmissions a bit. Because although this car's been absolutely fine with its 8HP 45, it doesn't slip, there's no issues, it's not like driving a 70. And you do miss out on a little bit of the experience, but to be fair, there's a lot of fast cars with 8HP 45s, all of the N55 F-Series cars, and they do work. They're just not quite as good, but we'll talk about it in the review video. However, this video is going to be on updating the Turbolamic. So this Turbolamic, I think I purchased it in January 2022. The software that is on it was the original software. We did run a test base map because this was the first 8HP 45 car that Turbolamic did. So let me show you how to actually update the firmware on the TCU. Okay, so here we have Tuner Pro set up. I don't know if there we go, you can sort of see it there. Okay, here we have Tuner Pro set up, and I am connected to the TCU. Now, I just wanted to show you, if we go under ECU info and then software ID, which is this one, it shows that it's currently got 10.66 software on the TCU itself. That's the TCU there. And that's what we need to change. So we're going to get out of Tuner Pro. And I have the TCU update software here. I'm actually going to go and do the beta version, the very, very new stuff. So 10.67, open up the software, and actually I must disconnect Tuner Pro because it will be connecting to the... Okay, Tuner Pro is disconnected. Okay, we'll go back to the updater. Now, yeah, you must disconnect Tuner Pro, else the updater won't be able to see the TCU. So we have the updater there, and we're going to select the file that we want to put on, and we want to go back a little bit. Sorry about the terrible camera here, guys. 10.67. Now this is the beta stuff, although there is a new update coming soon. Then you just click process. So it connects to the TCU. The car is having a panic. This is an E-Series BMW, so it's actually connected to the TCU. And you do want to make sure that the TCU doesn't lose power during this. Just something to remember. And the display is actually reading, if it'll focus, reset. But we'll let this bar go through. And transmission. And the screen now displays back to normal Turbolamic stuff. Oh, there we go. So it just looks all normal. So that's actually the update done. It is that quick and it's that simple. So we'll go out of here. We're going to go back to Tuner Pro. Close this because we don't need that one anymore. And reconnect the Lamic. Okay, we are connected. Now I'm just going to download the map from the current TCU, or the current map that's on the TCU. So we'll download current bin. That's done. And then we'll check the software ID again. And we are now running 10.67. Sorry about the blurriness. Okay, so that is all you have to do to update the firmware on the Turbolamic. And you can go back through Tuner Pro and make sure that it has updated it. Now, if you're going to make use of any of the features that are in the Turbolamic, check out turbolamic.eu. Sorry, the new features from the new firmware, because you will need to update the XDF and the ADF files. And I'll show you quickly how you do that. So hopefully you've all installed the Tuner Pro software before, and you'll know where you are. If we go Turbolamic. Okay, so you go Turbolamic, and we'll go straight to download. This is just turbolamic.eu, and then the beta software. This is where I actually got the latest software from. You can see 10.67. It does explain how to do everything in here, but I still get a lot of people asking. And then you need the XDF and the ADX from the beta section. I've already got it, and I've already put it into Tuner Pro. But all you need to do is, once you get into Tuner Pro, is load the XDF, the new one, and then also load the definition file. And then that gets Tuner Pro working with the latest firmware. And then once you've got the XDF and the ADF files updated, you just want to download the bin file from the TCU. Download bin. Sweet. So now everything in Tuner Pro has all the settings and information for this specific vehicle. And then it actually fills in all the defaults. So where you've got new options like trans brake launch, the launch settings, bump function, etc. All this is now populated with default values, and it will all work as it should. And then once you've done that, it's just a matter of then re-uploading it to the TCU. And then this now has a BIM file that's got all the updated settings and options and functions. All right, so the main thing I want to test just to see if it's working is the bump function. So let's get out in the driveway and we'll test the bump, and I'll explain what it is. All right, guys, so I've had a bit of a play with it just to make sure it was working, and it did. I did read while I was off camera that you're supposed to use a completely new map. Now, I didn't use a new map. I just used the one that was in it before, and I think it's working okay because it's only going from 10.6.6 to 10.6.7. Maybe if you had a larger change, you would need to use a completely new base map, but essentially this map hasn't changed. It is the original base map that was on the car. It's just now got a few other options and settings in there because of the firmware update. Anyway, let's try this bump function. Now, the idea of a bump is to get the car into stage or up into stage whilst it's on boost on the trans brake. Now, on a standard turbo car like this that's pretty responsive with the turbos, it's not really needed. This is just a bit of a toy, but I want to show you how it works. But the idea is if you've got a turbo that takes a few seconds to spool, you can get the car into stage, get it on the trans brake, build up boost, and when you're making the boost that you want to make for your launch, you can then get into stage and then you can race. Let me show you how this one does it. So we've got a little bit of oil temp in the car, and we're going to put the transmission into P3. So to do that, we just go over to sports mode, P3 on the mode selector there, and now we can get trans brake. That display should go to trans brake. There we go. Okay, now I did say in a couple of videos now, but trans brake enables reverse and drive gears basically at the same time, and it holds the car still. So let me turn the trans brake on and I'll show you what happens. So right now, if I put the trans brake on, let the foot off the brake, the car doesn't move. And you can see there. And that's good. And we can actually build up some boost. And I have the trans brake now set to 2800 RPM. So you can see it gets to 2800 RPM and then it starts bouncing off a fake limiter. And what we're gonna do now is do the same, but we're gonna bump. And I think I'll try and show you the best angle I can. We will engage trans brake. Trans brake's engaged. We'll bring the car up into power. And then we can bump. Oh. Okay, so we have been playing with the bump settings a little bit. As default, this is actually set to bump 1/4 of a rotation of the output shaft, and we've actually wound that right back to about 1/10 of a rotation. And that's getting us this movement here. I'll show you in the window what that looks like. So you can see the reflection of the car there. In fact, we have a filmer. That's it. That is a proper bump, and it's used for drag racing, which this car's probably never going to do. So this car's running the latest public version of the Turbolameq firmware. It's got the bump function. I kind of just want to play with it. When it was first set up, the car was actually moving quite a lot, like maybe half a foot. So we've wound it back down, and that's about enough movement that I'd want if I was trying to stage the car. Some things to note, the new firmware also comes with a launch control function instead of a trans brake launch. I did have a quick play with it, but it feels like it's going to break something in this car. With the launch control function, you really need an aftermarket ECU setup with a launch rev limiter. This did not have a launch rev limiter, so when it's enabled, you can rev it round to 5, 6. I gave up at about 6,000 RPM. And obviously, if it engages drive at 6,000 RPM, I just feel like it's going to break something. This car, although it's stock turbo, it does make quite a lot of power, and it makes torque really, really early. So I just feel like it would break something pretty quickly. Anyway, I'm going to drive around in it for another couple of days and actually just get my head around how it really drives with the Turbolameq and have a review out for you guys shortly. If you've got any questions about upgrading firmware with Turbolameq, as always, hit me up in the comments below. And yeah, we've got some 8-speed conversions to do. A lot. That's the next one. and I should have really said, the main reason I wanted to play with this is here for a turbo Lamech. We've got to work out how to do it, but once that thing can actually stage with a trans brake, it's going to be fast. It's a really fast car as it is, but those A90s, they need a trans brake. All right, guys, thank you for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.